Got Your Eers On is brought to you by Tactical Legion 9.
All right, everybody, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Got Your Eers On. Guido here along with Scoot.
Hello.
And Johnson.
We thought we might have to have an emergency pod this week, Guido, or maybe we were hoping we were going to have to.
I think it was definitely think it was more of a hope for an emergency podcast as once again, it seems like it's now becoming a yearly thing that collegiate athletics, Division I, Power 5 collegiate athletics just gets turned upside down as USC and UCLA, two California, LA-based teams, announce they're going to the Big Ten, and then all of a sudden conferences start to freak out, boys, and WVU fans along with it, Johnson.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that with kind of the precision of a scalpel, the Big Ten just reaches out and carves out these LA schools, and then the Pac-12, which has sort of been one of those conferences that have kind of set back and sort of poked and pointed at the Big 12 like, haha, what's wrong with you guys? Sent them reeling, and you start to realize just how fragile all of these conference situations are.
Right. Well, and I think Scoot will agree with it. It's like our East Coast bias, right? Like Scoot's like Pac-12, like who's ever cared about the Pac-12? That's like how Scoot always thinks. But like, you know, the Big Ten coming in and seemingly like plucking away the arguably two of the larger names out of the Pac-12, other than Oregon, kind of leaves the Pac-12 a little, you know, worse for the wear. And now I feel like it's a feeding frenzy.
Well, it's funny. I read a tweet somewhere that now the trip between USC and UCLA and Rutgers is actually close. No, it's actually farther than Rutgers going to Iceland to play a game.
Yeah. I read that one. I think I also saw, Scoot, that it was closer for, I want to say, UCLA to go to Honduras. And someone commented on Twitter that, hey, look, Honduras can't take the Big Ten grind. Okay, they're not an option. Just a funny conversation that seems completely appropriate for that whole topic all of a sudden.
There's a lot of tweets about how, like, when UCLA or USC gets to Michigan in the wintertime or in late fall, how the players will react to the weather and that kind of stuff. It's goofy. Like, so the traditionalist in most of us says this is horrible. Like, we can't have this because it's annoying. We complain.
There's no regionality to it. Like,
well,
it's like
we complain about having to play Lubbock, Texas, and how that's what, Central Time. If you're Rutgers and now you've got to play a game against USC on a Saturday night, you might kick off at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Yeah, right. Like, what the heck? Like, not that there's a lot of and Rutgers doesn't have any fans, so I guess it doesn't really matter to them. But that's.
But we were complaining. We complain about, like, Iowa State. Up until the next couple of years when Cincinnati comes on board in the Big 12, we were complaining about, like, Iowa State was our closest proximity team that we were playing. But I mean, if you're SC or UCLA, like, what, Nebraska? Like, Nebraska's your closest team now. Like,
yeah, I guess the only thing, like, with. And I think more so USC than UCLA, right? Because UCLA football, really since Troy Aikman, hasn't been much of anything to really get too crazy about. But USC has been able to play Notre Dame, and they've created some rivalries with some of these other schools because of their non-conference schedule. I don't know. I think that's more of a lure, and I think UCLA was kind of like along for the ride. And basketball with UCLA kind of carries the weight there.
Right. So, Johnson, like, now that, you have these, like, what other dominoes are to fall now? Because now you've got the ACC sort of on their heels. The SEC's bucked up now, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. Like, somebody's trying to catch up with us, we better get ahead. Because, I mean, obviously this was a play by the Big Ten to catch up to the Oklahoma-Texas grab that SEC had last year. So now does the SEC start to say, hey, I mean, there's not really much left at the SEC. No offense to, I mean, we're all WVU fans, no offense to us, but I don't think the SEC is looking to grab a West Virginia or an Iowa State or an Oklahoma State or even a Baylor. Like, so now does the SEC start to look at the ACC and go, well, okay, maybe one of these Florida teams looks kind of nice. Miami, Florida State, you say? Maybe, oh, wait, Clemson always should have been in the SEC. Like, what happens now? Like, how do the dominoes fall?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that this feels like almost sinister, doesn't it, from the Big Ten?
Right.
I mean, we had spent, not even a year ago, as recently talking about the Big Ten was trying to foment this, the alliance, Guido. We had the ACC and the Pac-12 and the Big Ten getting together in the quote-unquote alliance. And we were all angry as Big 12ers because it felt like we were getting freezed out. And it's sort of like the Big Ten said, hey, look over there. And when the Pac-12 looked over their shoulder, they turned back around and lost two teams, like someone stole their nachos at a party or something. This is so weird. It feels so sinister by the Big Ten. And I think, to answer your question, we follow so much stuff on Twitter. The conversation that seems to resonate the most with me right now, and I'll ask you guys your opinion, obviously, but the grant of rights from the ACC, because like you said, Guido, the next domino feels like the consensus feels like everyone would fully expect a Clemson, a Florida State, a Miami, like you said. Those would be queued up and ripe now as markets, as teams, as marquee names, as big brands. Because like you said, UCLA isn't really, from a performance on the field, a marquee name, but they're a huge brand and a huge, they're in that LA market. So when you look at who's available, those three ACC teams come to mind. The only conversation I've seen that makes a lot of sense to me is this grant of rights that the ACC has signed itself up for. I don't know if it's going to be strong enough to fend off or play defense on this stuff, but it's a terrible contract, I think, if you're in the ACC, but it goes all the way through 2036. Right. And it's something that at least is sort of keeping this conversation at bay, or at least it feels like it is for the meantime. Now, look, you get enough lawyers in a room, I'm sure that they just toss that out and go on, or they litigate around it or something. But even this thing with these are the next three brands available, it seems like that grant of rights is really the only thing holding the ACC together right now.
Well, and I think for me, that's like, and then I would, we have always been, as the three of us especially have always been as WVU fans, like, we're always like, oh, we miss the pit. We miss those regional games that we could have, the Syracuse, the Virginia Techs. Like, we'd love to have those back. I'm not sure the ACC is the place you want to be right now. Like, and that's what I think more, like, as much as I don't love the Big 12, Scooty, as much as I don't love the travel, I feel like the Big 12, even losing Texas and Oklahoma, is sort of in a more stable place than the ACC is at this point.
So I've come around on the idea of this Big 12. If we grab the 4 or possibly 6 Pac-12 teams that we are rumored to see join the Big 12, the four corners is what they're calling them.
So Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah.
Yes. So if we grab those, potentially, and I've heard Washington and Oregon are
in the mix. Maybe
they're in the mix. I think they're kind of waiting to see if the Big Ten will try to grab them or somebody else will try to grab them also.
I think it's hinging on that Notre Dame decision.
Right.
I think.
Right.
So if we grab those, I would also like to go grab 4 from the ACC. Listen. And then I think we're in better shape because now we are in a if these conferences are going to get huge, the Big 12 could potentially be America's conference with going coast to coast. Mm-hmm. So I mean I think it could be interesting, and I think it. So let's say we get the four for sure, and then we go to the East Coast and we grab a Pitt. No, I say we grab. These schools have to apply, right? So it's not like we just go out and say, hey, we're taking you and putting you in our conference. They've got to formally apply.
But you're working on the assumption that grant of rights isn't enough. They get they start getting plundered.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can sell to a Fox, a CBS, an NBC, whoever, hey, look, we're going to give you pretty much all of America. Because at any given weekend, you might have an East Coast team playing a West Coast team. You might have somebody in the Central time zone playing somebody on the East Coast or West Coast. So you grab Pitt, you grab, I would go Virginia Tech, I'd go Pitt, I'd go UVA, and maybe you grab, I really don't care who the fourth school is, North Carolina State, or it could be a Wake Forest, or it could be a Syracuse, or.
But do you think that? So I'm going to interject with a question to you though, because I don't disagree with anything you're saying. Like that would be, and as a WVU fan, then I think that what you're describing then kicks off that whole thing we read about for like 2 years around pods and scheduling around pods and lessening the impact of geography,
quote unquote, divisions within the conference, right? So this is the East Coast group, this is the middle.
But do you think nothing in our prior history of being affiliated with this conference tells us or leads us to believe that they would make smart decisions and be proactive about any of this stuff? So do you think in this instance, because I'm looking at some tweets we had from like Dennis Dodd, Pat Forty, they were actually putting out tweets July 1st, July 2nd saying things like Big 12 officials say they don't see a need to talk to these Pac-12 schools. And conversely, the Pac-12 was saying they're authorizing people to go out and, look at all expansion options. So I'm just asking the question, do you feel like the Big 12 will do the appropriate thing in this instance?
Well, so to talk about like what, the quotes, I guess, from officials, I think that's a lot of wordplay, Johnson. Like, I think they have to downplay it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, you're right.
And I think at the end of the day, like all of these conferences right now, because I think we're on the path of like, there's not going to be a Power 5 anymore. Like we're on the path of a Power 4 and maybe even a Power 3, sort of setup in the conference area. And I think, it comes down to TV deals, so
do you think it's even 3?
Yeah, I think it's 3. I do. And to be honest with you, I think it's 3. And I think it's like you've got SEC, which is going to continue to be, elite. They've got their new ESPN deal. They only want the schools that they want, right? So like a West Virginia, Iowa State, they're not going to make it in an SEC, right? Those mid-tier.
I think the only way they would is if, let's say they go to something like, I don't know, 30 teams.
Well, I think the SEC already sort of muddied. Excuse me. I think the SEC already muddied the waters when they took A&M, and I don't think A&M has panned out the way they thought it would. And so I think now they're like, okay, we only want the big.
Look at Missouri.
Yeah, look at Mizzou. Like same situation. Like I think they're only looking at big teams. They want Texas. They want Oklahoma. They want Clemson. Those are big teams.
Well,
Those
finish your thought.
And to be honest with you, between the other Florida schools, I don't think they want Florida State. I think they want Miami.
Well, finish your thought though, because it feels like there's going to be an ESPN conference and a Fox conference, doesn't it?
And that's exactly the direction we're heading. But I think what happens is you have an ESPN conference, which is going to be the SEC. You have a Fox conference, which is going to be the Big Ten. And then I think, as ESPN tends to do, they want that second tier of television. And I think that's the third conference, which is going to be this like mix of those ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12 teams mixed together. So you get that conference. The question is do they divide that into two conferences? NBC has no interest in it, except for the fact that NBC has this whole deal with Notre Dame. And so Notre Dame, and I hate this, Johnson, like Notre Dame is sort of like the pin in the grenade right now. Like once Notre Dame makes the decision, I feel like everything blows up.
Well,
if Notre Dame comes out tomorrow.
Isn't it so annoying that 20 years later, a lot of this still hinges on what Notre Dame's participation is? And I like how there were early tweets when this first started coming out of people that were like ACC fans or ACC writers saying, well, they already have Notre Dame on board. They just need one or two other things. And then the ACC solid. And I thought myself, you, anyone who lived through the early aughts Big East days, it's like, man, we
Right.
know
It's the same
better.
thing.
Like,
All
don't
over
do
again.
that. That's a false hope. Don't hook your wagons to that.
But do you think, Scoot, that there's a conference that says to Notre Dame, hey, come on board, be in our conference, but go ahead and keep your NBC deals. All your games can be on
No.
NBC.
No,
And that's where the problem is.
right. And going back to Johnson saying, or I think it was Johnson that said, what in our history makes you think that this is going to be a thing? We have a new commissioner who's got a different background.
Is that Jay-Z's friend
Yormark?
I read
Yeah,
or something?
Yormark, I think is his last name. Brett Yormark.
Okay.
He's coming from Rock Nation.
99 problems, but realignment ain't one or something.
That's right.
Ain't one.
That's right. And so I think that shoot. If he makes a decision as to what he wants for breakfast, he's going to be more decisive than Bowlesby was.
Right.
Right. So Bowlesby said that the conference was doing great, and the next day, freaking Texas and Oklahoma left. Like literally the next day.
Well,
That
I
next
think
day.
I think Scoot, you're usually more optimistic. Guido and I are kindred pessimist WVU fans. We're always waiting on the bad news, and I have a hard time getting confident, feeling like the Big 12 is in a position of leverage right now. And I think one thing that I wanted to ask your opinion on, both of you, what do you make of? Because this is one of those things that get under my skin that make me go, see, I was right in being pessimistic. We read something here lately, Scoot, I think you may have even shared it with me the other day, where what do you make of this whole discussion around maybe the Pac-12 or, the Pac whatever and the ACC now combining and having like this end of season championship? Like you read some of those scenarios too, like where they mesh these two entities together where they play each other.
That just says to me like, oh crap, we can't compete with what's going on around us. Let's try to make this something so that we can try to sell it to some television network. Because
right.
nobody wants this. Nobody cares about that. Like, I'm a diehard Washington State fan, and I'm supposed to get excited about the fact that we get to play North Carolina at the end of the season in football.
Right.
No.
So
like,
let me,
I don't see it.
let's talk about this for a second. Like, as WVU fans, so let's bring it back to WVU.
Okay.
Like, as WVU fans, what do we feel is missing in the Big 12, Scoot? Like your argument always is you don't care about the teams that we're playing, right? So you don't care about the Iowa States, you don't care about
Kansas
Ames,
State.
you don't care.
No.
Yeah, you don't care about going to
Football.
the Little Apple, right?
For me right now, let's throw Oklahoma and Texas out because they're leaving, right? If I
And
look
throw
at
back, and here's the thing. Like, when you think about this, when you think about conference realignment, it's funny because as all this happened over the past last 3 weeks, 2 weeks, I don't even think about basketball. Like, I don't even think about how it affects basketball.
Isn't that
I only
weird?
think about
That's
how it affects
weird, isn't
football,
it?
right?
Yeah.
Right. But think about like football. So WVU, caught all of this, grief when we went to the Big 12 about how we lost all those games. We lost all those, those games against Pitt, those games against Virginia Tech. Now, WVU and Shane Lyons have done a good job of scheduling some pretty awesome, home and aways. We've got 4 years coming up against Pitt. We've got Virginia Tech for the next 2 years. We've got Alabama in a couple of years, home and away. We've got a lot of good non-conference games scheduled. We're now at a point in the conference where we might be able to build ourselves to being a powerful school in the Big 12 because Texas and Oklahoma are gone, two teams that tend to steal a lot of that recruiting and win a lot of those games. I feel like we're in a better position now. Like, I feel like I almost am happier with the way that it's going, and I don't want to see this change.
If let's be real, can I be real with you guys?
Be real.
I mean, that's all I ask
If
you.
we're getting rid of Texas and Oklahoma, right? Let's take them. Right now, this year, we get rid of them. Where are we predicted to finish? 6th instead of 8th
Well,
in the conference?
no. I mean,
So we get rid of them, right? Right now, we are predicted to be 8th in the conference out of 10
Right.
teams.
correct.
So you get rid of Texas and Oklahoma, that puts us at 6th out of 8 teams because they aren't predicted to finish behind us. So while, yes, it would be the traditionalist in us says yes, we should be a power like the Big East days, because that's kind of what this is going to leave us feeling like we're back in the Big East, in the sense that the schools are all
some obstacles have been removed now.
Right,
so
right. So you feel like you've got a better chance to compete. But
that's kind of what happened. That's what happened for West Virginia in whatever it was.
Right, Miami left. Right.
Yeah. Miami left, Virginia Tech left, and WVU all of a sudden. And then granted, there was some great players and a lot of good things that happened. But for good coaching, like I'll give you all of that, Scooty. But like we spent 5 years being the best team in the Big East.
Well, but to answer Guido's question though, Scoot, like what do you need to see? And I have a feeling it's not the Arizonas, Utah, and Colorado. Like that, I can't see that moving the needle for you in this conversation, does it?
No. So for me, I need to see a couple more East Coast teams. And to be honest, I don't even know if we have to have traditional rivalries with them, but it has to give me some reason to maybe want to go to an away game. Or maybe
but my question to you, Scoot, though, is like, doesn't the Pitt game in the non-conference schedule, doesn't the Virginia Tech game, I think we've got, a couple of other of those kind of games in the non-conference, does not satiate your need at that point?
Yeah, it's great in August. What do I do for 3 months later in November when I have nothing?
You're gonna have Cincinnati. You add Cincinnati in there. I don't know how I feel about Central Florida, but
listen,
I don't know.
If Dana Holgerson's not at Houston, do we care? If Houston's a thing?
We don't care.
Right?
No, we don't care.
I mean, that's the only thing that makes that anything, is that the fact that
he's going to lose his job before he ever gets to the Big 12.
The benefit, I guess, of BYU is maybe they'll do the haka on the field before the game. That would be something fun to watch.
I don't know. I feel like even though WVU does,
I guess Cincinnati's it right now for me. Cincinnati's probably the only thing that might be exciting past the first week of September.
Well, and do you think this expansion goes for, I think where I'm at on this whole thing, because, every day we get new opinions and new slants on this stuff. I'm just wondering if, I think everyone is assuming, or at least I get the feeling when I read this stuff and opinions on Twitter, that people think it's not going to stop. It's going to go to 20 per conference or something. I'm not entirely convinced about. I think the Big Ten reaching out with that scalpel and carving out that Los Angeles market is because they thought that addition made everyone richer. I don't know that just then bringing on 4 more
schools
teams
just to bring schools.
You know what I mean? And I think
that might be more schools you get to cut the pie.
Exactly.
Eugene, Oregon isn't bringing a lot of TV
That's what
sets,
I'm thinking.
right.
Or at least it makes me wonder. In the same way with the SEC, people are like, well, the SEC is going to reach out and grab. Well, yeah, if they can grab, like we talked about, Guido, like you said, the brands like a Miami or, things that they know are going to make them richer and add to that pot. I don't think you're going to see any addition just to go to a number, just to go to 18 or just to go to 20. I don't get that impression. Do you?
I don't get that impression either, but I do. I think you're right. Like, I think they're all trying to grab the brands, and that's why, because there's no, again, WVU fans, please don't take this the wrong way. There's no brands really left, giant brands left in, the Big 12. I mean, you can argue that Kansas basketball is the biggest brand right now in the Big 12. But other than that, the ACC, Scooty, is the place where all the brands are left.
Well, here's the thing. From everything we've seen, whether it be via Twitter, other places on the internet, sports talk radio, sports talk shows, nobody sounds like they're planning to grab parts of the Big 12.
No. But it sounds like the Big 12's grabbing parts. Scooty.
Right, which I'd rather be the aggressor, because here's what's going to happen, right? So
are you saying you'd rather be the parts grabber than having your parts grabbed? Is that what you're saying?
I guess.
Scoot's
I don't know how I feel about putting it that way. But I would rather be the conference that's proactive instead of having to be reactive. And I get it. Our proactiveness is basically a reaction to something else. So you are reactive.
To come full
proactive.
circle, then let's just give an opinion here. That's why I'm a little surprised. Like, why wouldn't I'm just playing devil's advocate. Why wouldn't the Pac-12,
Right.
the Pac, whatever, the Pac? I'll just say the Pac. I don't know how many
West
numbers.
Coast Pac,
The West Coast entity, formerly like Prince, formerly known as the Pac-12. Why wouldn't they say, hey, BYU, Oklahoma State? Like, why wouldn't TCU? You're in a big market.
They should, but they're not.
Why wouldn't
I don't
they?
think they should.
Why
I don't
wouldn't
think
they
they've got a
say,
better deal.
Why,
I think they're-
instead of just sitting there and letting their four corner schools go, why wouldn't they turn around and be proactive?
I think some of that is their TV deal. Their deal isn't as strong. I also think that those schools probably have some fear that it's not going to be a very good package when theirs is up. So they are, I think the schools that end up leaving the Big 12, it's a set thing. It doesn't seem like it's really falling apart. The Big 12 did a good job. Not a great job, but a good job. As soon as Texas and Oklahoma left, they went out and grabbed 4 more schools right off the bat. So that, hey, we're solid. We went and got, we took care of business. I don't see the Big 12 being picked apart per se. The only thing I could see is if the ACC were to get some cojones and say something to Notre Dame like, listen, you're in or you're out, we got to move on. And then they start to be aggressive and maybe bring in a WVU, try to maybe see if Cincinnati would be more interested in going to the ACC. Maybe something like that could be a thing, but I don't see them doing that.
And here's the thing, Scoot, and this is the crazy thing about it. And like, we're not media guys. I mean, I know we do a podcast and we pretend to be media guys, which is what all people
I have a
who do
lot of
podcasts
followers. I get a lot of.
Scoot's got all
I track
27
my
followers. Right.
I track
exactly.
my internet clicks.
Here's the thing, and here's the reality of it. Like, the Pac-12, like USC and UCLA leaving screwed the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 had a $3 billion media deal with ESPN and Fox. So similar to the media deal that the Big 12 had, but the Pac-12's media contract is up in 2024. So like you couldn't have happened. This couldn't have happened at a worse time because they're in the middle of renegotiating that contract deal. So now like, if it's ESPN, if it's Fox, they've got the upper hand saying, hey, listen, you don't have anything left. On the other hand, the ACC is locked into this crazy deal that they have until what, 2035 or 2037?
It goes a long time.
So it's like it puts those Pac-12 schools in a position where they're just like, what do we do? Because nobody's going to, like, they're going to lose tons of money. Because, like, listen, everything about college football that you know comes from TV deals. Like, take everything out of it, it's all TV deals, guys. Like, and so the Big 12 is in a great position because that's a new deal that they just renegotiated. They're locked into. It's a decent deal, and I think that the Pac-12, and this is why the Pac-12 is going to get picked apart in this whole thing, is because those schools are going to be like, you know what, I'm willing to take a slice of the pie that I know is guaranteed versus something that we're trying to negotiate.
Take time zone out of it. Okay, take time zone out of it. As a college football fan, just a generic college football fan, take your WVU fandom, put that aside. Are you more likely to watch, well, let me ask it, are you likely to watch a random Saturday night SEC matchup? Auburn against South Carolina. Would you watch that if it was on TV?
Here's the problem. This is where what's going to happen, Scoot, is it used to be that I would watch like whatever WVU game was either at, noon or 3 or 7. And then at night at 10:30 or 10 o'clock, I'd turn on the TV and I'd watch some random, like, let's watch Stanford play Oregon State because that was all that was on.
Yeah.
Oh, Hawaii's playing, that's what would happen. Now what's going to happen, though, and this is where the Big 12 is smart. Like, now what's going to happen is they're going to lock up that 10 o'clock game because now instead of watching Stanford play Oregon State or Hawaii, you're going to watch Rutgers play USC, or you're going to watch Nebraska play UCLA.
Or you could, I guess, in our case, watch BYU play Utah, or maybe in Arizona play. At least you would have something that would maybe sell you on having those Western editions.
Well, my point, for me, I'm not watching those random Pac-12 games. Maybe you did, but I didn't. So my thought was, one,
That's because I'm a real football fan.
no, that's not true.
Well, but I would
It's
do the
be-
same thing that Guido's described. I mean, I would watch college football all day long, and if I'm still up in 11, yeah, I'm watching.
I'm putting it on in the background,
watching
even if I'm
Oregon State play Cal or something. I mean, it's on. I may not be like edge of my seat, but it's on.
Those schools, the two you just mentioned, they're in trouble because no one's talking about, man, we got to get Cal, Oregon State,
Sure.
Right.
Washington
Absolutely.
State
Right.
also in trouble. Those are the schools that are going to get left put in. They're going to be dropped into either the mid or the what is that called, Mountain West Conference or something like
so
that.
that's sort of a segue. I have one last question. Can I ask you guys my one last question? So I'm going to do it anyway. So on my mind though is this all a lot of action and activity and this frenzy of discussion on where these final dominoes fall? Are we watching the SEC and the Big 12 create the top tier? And when this is all done, we are going to be participating in and talking about the next tier down of football. Is that what we're watching here?
For
So
WVU.
forget Power 5, Power 2, Power whatever. Are we watching the formation of Division 1A and Division 1B, and WVU will be participating in Division 1B? Is that what we're...
I think the three. I think if you're in those three, you're good.
What
if you're
three?
not in the three,
What three?
I think the Big 12, because I think that's going to be a thing. It seems to be the most stable, even though the ACC.
So you think the ACC and the Pac-12 are the ones that are...
I think they're in trouble. I do. And I think part of the ACC's problem is this long deal. Because I think some of these schools are going to feel like, when the TV's renegotiating here now, they're going to get an opportunity to get more money.
Okay. Well, Scoot, let me frame it another way then, because I think, remember how we used to talk about the Power 4 or whatever, and it was going to be like 64 teams. Remember, people have prophesized forever 16 teams per conference. We're going to have 4 major conferences, 64 teams. So they tried to slot in who they thought the top 64 brands were or whatever. I guess my pessimist, Guido, lately is wondering, is that really the top 40?
No.
And then you have this next, unfortunately, you then have this next level down that's like the next 25 or 30 schools, and then everyone else below that is really out.
What I think,
no, hold on. So I think that what's happening here, Johnson,
you know what I mean?
You're going down the right. I know what you mean 100%. You're going down the right path. I think that it'll never be called that. You're never talking about 1A, 1B. I think, are we going to a true Power 2? Absolutely. Because we all know that we're moving towards at least an 8, and if not a 16-team playoff in the NCAA right now, right? That's happening. It's going to happen. There's no way that the NCAA gives up the money that is going to be available there. They just need to work it out with the bowls. So now you look at it and you go, okay, well, let's start with 8 teams. So you got 8 teams. You got 4 teams from those Power 2 conferences, let's call them. You've got a Big 12 team, and maybe ACC survives. So you got an ACC team and 2 at-larges, because you want to be able to let, those, whatever, Central Florida's be able to get in when they have undefeated seasons against nobody. So, I think that's where the direction is, Johnson. You're not far off from the fact that forget what you regionality is gone. The rivalries are going to have to be scheduled like West Virginia's schedule them now. You want to play Pitt, you want to have the Backyard Brawl, that's got to be outside of whatever your conference is. That's not happen. It's not, unless you're lucky enough to be, an Alabama and an Auburn, unless you're lucky enough, I'm sorry, South Carolina and Clemson, that whole deal, that's going to get broken up, because South Carolina ain't making it to the SEC and Clemson is. So those are the kind of things that are going to start to break apart, but you're not far off, Johnson, because I think you're going to have, and I'm even going one step further. I think you're going to have the SEC, the Big 12 Big 10 trying to keep up, and then everybody else.
Moved from, I think my worry now is I've moved from, I want WVU to land in one of these top conferences, or at least the ACC for my regional own enjoyment of watching them play those teams. Which was my traditional worry or want or anxiety. I feel like with all of this, my anxiety is starting to shift to, I just want them to be somewhere where they're still at the big boy table. You know what I
Relevant.
mean? Like, even if we're still in this weird Big 12 conglomerate, that spans, maybe across even more time zones, I can maybe live with that. I mean, I don't want that,
Right.
but I guess I'll live with that if it means we're still in that,
Yeah, Scooty, I think that, I think that WVU stays relevant in all of this. Like, are we as relevant as Alabama? No. Are we ever going to be as relevant as, Alabama or Miami or, whatever? No, we're never going to be. We're never going to be that team. But I think we're still relevant.
I was, since all this conference talk has been going on, I've tuned more into ESPNU radio during the week, and they had an interview with Kirk Herbstreit. And while at times Kirk Herbstreit is annoying,
Herbie.
but he, I would think, is in some of these circles where they're talking not only college football, but they're talking about networks and things of that sort.
Right.
And he made the comment that what's happening is you're going to see two gigantic leagues, and it's almost going to be like the AFC and the NFC, and it's basically going to be the NFL football on Saturdays. You'll have these two conferences. They're going to work in a playoff, and then maybe you have the winner of that conference play the winner of the other conference for the championship. And then, like you guys said, these other schools will filter in. It's like, I don't think they'll call it like a 1A, because in a way that comes across as demeaning, and I don't think that, and it's hard to recruit to that. So I think it'll be something else, some other name, whether it be, I don't know what it'll be called, but it will be these other conferences. Now, I've also heard an idea that was put out by a radio talk show host, which is interesting. It'll never happen, but it is very interesting in that they thought a good idea would be to go with the European idea of relegation.
Oh,
Relegation.
okay.
That would
All
be
right.
fun. That would be a good
Where
time.
you've got these two big leagues
Yeah.
or whatever, Big 12, SEC, then you've got the other conferences, and you have the opportunity to elevate yourself to one of those big conferences, and then maybe the bottom 3 or 4 teams get relegated down to these other conferences.
Right.
So then it
Right.
forces you to be relevant. It gives you some recruiting opportunities if you're in one of those smaller conferences. Hey, everyone's got a chance to, if we put things together here, we have the opportunity. Now, the catch is, like in professional sports, if things aren't going well for me, I can go out and sign X, Y, and Z for the upcoming year and be good to go. You can't do that in college sports per se, because I can recruit to a certain extent, but I can't rely on all first-year players to carry the load in football. Like, that's not realistic.
But you're not far from that with an NIL.
Right, we're getting there.
Like,
Yes, you're right.
not
We
far
are
from
getting
it.
there. So I thought that was an interesting concept, was this relegation idea. I don't know feasibly, like, that's a lot of infrastructure that would have to be created.
Yeah,
and I don't see that.
I don't. I
happening.
mean, I'm sure an Alabama,
Well, those big schools would
is
never sign up
they're
for
never
that.
they're never gonna sign up. For
Why?
that.
Because they have a chance.
I think, I think that this is the ever-changing landscape of what is now college sports, and it's and the crazy thing about it, and we said this a minute ago, Johnson, like, it's driven 100% by football. Like, I feel like basketball's still giant. Like, it's giant revenue generating sport for for a lot of these schools. But because NCAA basketball years ago fixed the whole issue with the fact that they just do March Madness, and like, conference tournaments are important, but nobody gives two craps about them, because at the end of the day, people care about the NCAA tournament and these, well, now 68 or 60, whatever, 70, how many ever teams they have now, play in it, 68 teams playing, I think that that's what's changed the whole landscape of it, is like, basketball gets left behind. So this is all about football and football money.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if Olympic sports, kind of like soccer does, that's one that jumps to the top of my mind. Do they just continue to, like, do their own thing regionally, like you see teams do? Like, even WVU, they're in the Big 12, but don't they play soccer in the MAC, I think now, or perhaps Conference USA?
Conference
so
USA.
It's funny how I think the Olympic sports will continue to, because you can imagine that UCLA and USC's, like swim team or something. I don't know. They can't be celebrating this because who has the budgets to go to Piscataway, New Jersey and stuff like that?
Well, they're going to celebrate it if the school's getting money, right?
Yeah,
so,
of course.
That's the catch.
I just mean practically it doesn't seem, I don't know. I could be wrong, I guess, but I think you would have to continually see those things continue to reform. But Guido, I'll end my comments by saying, I think everything we talked about here really is a good roundup. I just hope, my other fear is that this continues to drag. Whatever happens, I hope it happens in a relatively near-term time frame. I'm tired of, I would love to just see the other shoe drop on this and just wherever we're going, let's just go ahead and get there so I can go back to being a college football fan. Please.
And and it's funny you say that, because I've heard both, I think Dennis Dodd and Brent McMurphy say in the last couple of weeks, talk about how it's all going to be sussed out by the end of July, and then the next 3 tweets later it's we may still be dealing with this in the summer of 2023. It's listen, I'm an old man, my heart can't take it.
Let's just get there.
But I feel like Johnson, though, the good part about this whole thing is I feel like West Virginia is actually in a very good position. Unlike what happened with the Big East when it fell apart, I think now with their positioning in the Big 12, the amount of TV screens that they gather, I think all of that, I think West Virginia is in a good position to not be all of a sudden, to use a term Scoot said, relegated to a Conference USA or an AAC or whatever. I think West Virginia is in a good place to land on their feet. They're not going to be in a Big Ten or an SEC, and we know that. Let's like where we're at and understand that maybe we can compete and be in a better position. You know?
Well, and let's go forward instead of continuing to scramble, I think is what you mean too, right? We don't have to be, hopefully, I'm being positive here. It feels like the conference is finally in a position where it doesn't have to scramble. It can be a little more selective. It can kind of solidify the future. Let's hope so. I hope that's where it's at.
So let's take a few minutes and talk about some other things. There's other WVU sports stuff to talk about, not just this crazy conference. Let's talk about, first of all, Backyard Brawl, where Johnson, last time I looked, I think we are something like 55 days away. We're in the 50-ish day away range to the Backyard Brawl. Couple things. One thing is WVU has already sold out their allotment for the game,
which I think is 6,000 tickets or something, 8,000, 6,000.
So don't worry, there's 55,000 Pitt tickets that are left that I'm sure you can buy just by calling the Pitt Athletic Department.
I wonder how many, beyond that. I keep thinking it's going to be a huge amount beyond that allotment. You would think. I'm continuing to think you're going to see a 50-50 at least split, if not more lopsided toward WVU. We know we've played there in the past and we've just it's been a home game. So I know Pitt's coming off an ACC championship. I know they haven't played us in, however many years. They're going to pay more attention to be getting up for this one and probably sell tickets for true Pitt fans. But I don't know. I continue to think WVU fans are going to gobble these tickets up.
Well, I will tell you, I have been keeping an eye on tickets. There are tickets left. You can go online and get tickets, StubHub, you can find tickets places. There aren't a ton of tickets left. There's still, and the prices are still pretty high. I mean, you're paying $120 a seat to go see WVU play Pitt in Heinz Field. It's going to be huge. It's going to be sold out. I mean, it's going to be a full stadium, which is exciting. I think it's, for WVU fans, it's exciting to get back to, playing Pitt again and having the Backyard Brawl back in the schedule. I think for Pitt fans, it'll be exciting to be playing in front of a full crowd, maybe. I mean, they don't do that very often unless they're on the road. So it'll be good for that. I can't even tell you the last time Pitt has probably sold out Heinz Field. This will be one of those rare times. The other cool thing is for WVU, Johnson, Scoot, there's some pretty awesome uniforms that they released for the game.
Johnson is all over these things. Now, I will give you credit, Johnson.
Please. Now, I wanted some credit for my reaction on this.
They are it's a sharp looking uniform.
But what do I traditionally do?
Well, Johnson and I are suckers. We're suckers for the state
And what
logo.
do I traditionally do,
Scoot?
I traditionally hate on anything other than gold pants, blue jerseys, blue helmets, as God intended, right? I hate on anything other. I'm one of those curmudgeon-y people. So when you initially sent me this, I was ready to hate it, and I was hoping you would give me some points for... I read through this description as well. You sent me this tweet about it says all roads lead to the brawl, and it's explaining how in the number there are country roads from the... Like, I wanted to run through a wall after I read this tweet, right?
We're ordering these uniforms, Johnson, aren't we? Like, we're ordering.
And the helmet, it's white. I was ready to hate a white helmet, and then, like Guido said,
but then it's got the yellow and blue stripe.
You suck me in with the striping and the state and the WV flying in the middle of the state. Like, I want to sign up to fight something. You know what I mean? Like, come on. That was
and the stripes mean
terrific.
Country roads as well. So there's a lot of like meaning behind it. Unfortunately, I think it's just for this one game. So like it's going to be like come and gone.
Well, I'm amped. Like, I didn't really need anything to amp me up more for this upcoming game, but this is cool. These uniforms look completely cool.
I mean, I think they look awesome. I'm excited about them. I mean, you know, I will tell you, like, when you look at the pattern, when you see like the I-79 up the middle of the jersey, when you know, and all the whatever those Scoots roads, like I call them Scooty's roads because he drives them all the time. Like 218, like who drives 218, right? Like who drives these routes? Like Scoot's like Scoot,
that's a Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday for Scoot. Like Scoot's always out there. Like I don't even know where some of these are, but like. I'm excited for it. I think that, you know, for WVU fans, and it's great. I think it's great that this game is at Heinz Field at Pitt, at Pitt. As much as you'd love to have the first game in Morgantown, like I think the fans are going to be amped. I think a lot of West Virginia people are going to drive the couple of hours up to Pittsburgh to see this. And and for me, Scooty, like on the back of the helmet, Route 33, which is very important to me and Scoot, because we drove that.
That's right.
We drove 33 a lot there, like through Upshur County, all of that. Like I love it, man.
It's great.
It sharp.
Just hits. It
great.
checks all the boxes as far as I'm concerned.
Right. I mean, it's going to be fun. I mean, I love the fact that it's going to be a Thursday. I mean, at first I was mad it was a Thursday night game. I was like, oh, do I really want a Thursday night game? Now I'm like pumped about it. Like everything about this game, I'm excited about.
Yeah, me too. I'm all in. I was already all in. Now I'm all in.
You're all in. So the other thing, WVU football this week. I mean, I'm getting pumped for football season. WVU football this week announced their, I guess we'll call it like their promotional schedule, their promotional dates. So September 10th against Kansas is the Gold Rush. So everybody's going to wear gold. You would then assume, Johnson, that your favorite jersey, all gold jerseys will be worn that day.
Yeah, and I mean, just whatever. Get rid of those against Kansas, right? Like who cares?
Yeah, right.
That's fine. Banana suits against Kansas.
Banana suits against Kansas. October 13th, we're striping the stadium against Baylor. Homecoming's the 29th against TCU, and Senior Day against K-State November 19th. So those are all going to be exciting times for WVU. Excited for those dates to get released, guys. So football season's right around the corner, Scoot. I mean,
it'll be here quick. I'm interested to see maybe how the depth chart starts to shape up. Curious about the quarterback position to see how that looks because we got 4 that we know of. I would think that somebody's not going to be there. I don't know.
Right. I mean, we're less than a month away from camp starting for, the game, to get prep for the season. We are it's things are going to be happening. WVU, though, I will say, I know we alluded to it earlier. The preseason Big 12 media poll came out this past week on the 7th, and WVU did not fare as well as I'd kind of hoped. Even with the addition of JT Daniels, WVU slotted in 8th place for the Big 12 football media preseason poll. No first place votes. Iowa State was 6th. They got 1 first place vote. Everybody thinks Baylor's going to finish first. Oklahoma second, Oklahoma State third, Texas fourth, K-State, surprising, K-State fifth in the preseason poll, Iowa State, TCU, West Virginia, Texas Tech, and Kansas finishing below West Virginia in that poll. So it'll be interesting to see how that all comes together. I guess I kind of had hoped, guys, that maybe we would have seen like a fifth or a sixth in the preseason poll for West Virginia and not an eighth. I feel like, Scooty, eighth is a little bit of a, little bit of gut punch.
No, I think it's accurate because Vegas has us eighth. Vegas is usually pretty accurate. We've not won 3 games in a row under Neil Brown. I'll say that one more time. I think that's a crazy stat. So until you start winning 3 games in a row or more, I think 8th sounds about right.
I think TCU being ranked ahead of WVU makes me scratch my head a little bit because they're trying to now come off, a season where their coach left. They're going to be answering a lot of questions, not only on the field, but in the coaching, how the direction of that team from a coaching standpoint. So that one I didn't expect, and I didn't expect Kansas State to be as high as 5th, Guido, just because I don't know. There must be something there that sports writers think or that Vegas thinks has gone on since we last saw the purple Kansas that would put them ahead of like an Iowa State and a WVU. I don't know. That one seems a little bit puzzling to me too.
Yeah, and again, I mean, especially with the fact that Matt Campbell at Iowa State, is building that program allegedly. Like, I thought Iowa State would get a little bit more love. I thought West Virginia with JT Daniels would get a little bit more love. And apparently, though, Big 12 media doesn't really care about that. Big 12 Media Day, is, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, how much does all of this weigh? I think, it's coming up this week, July 13th, 14th, Big 12 Media Day. You can watch a lot of it on ESPNU, Big 12 Now on ESPN+. You can see interviews. I'm sure West Virginia is sending JT Daniels there. I'm sure you're going to see like a Dante Stills and maybe even a Zach Frazier there in front of the dais talking to the Big 12 media. But I thought for sure West Virginia would get a little bit more love with some of the postseason, off-season things that they've added to the program. But I hear you, Scoot. Like, you got to win. You got to win games. You got to show that you can win games to get some love.
Graham Harrell, JT Daniels aside, we don't know what positive impact they're going to have. We have yet to see.
Well, and I guess that's what they're saying, right? They're saying, hey, those 2 additions don't move the needle enough to convince me you're going to do anything. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
All right, guys, we're right up on it. We should really wrap it up. But I do have a couple of little items I want to add into here. Congratulations to former WVU baseball standout Alek Manoah making the MLB All-Star game. I mean, Scoot, you saw him pitch, I think, once. I mean, he's amazing.
He's for a rookie last year, to continue to do as well as he's done. People compare him to Roger Clemens.
I mean, he's the ace of the Blue Jays staff right now. So, I mean, it's pretty awesome to see him make the All-Star game. So congratulations to him. Also want to say, hey, congratulations to the WVU women's basketball. New head coaches here. A lot of stuff happening. WVU women's basketball was announced that they'll be playing in the Cancun Challenge against, I think, Harvard, Florida State, a couple of other teams in there. In that converted ballroom, boys, maybe there'll be one of those mop guys who will set a pick for them as they are playing.
Yeah, this is where it looked like we were playing next to like a K&W cafeteria in a hotel ballroom. And you're right, Guido. That's where the kid was still like mopping the lane when active play was going on, I think, in one of those games.
Guido, I will give you $20 if you can pronounce the head coach's last name correctly. On the first try.
Can you do it, Scoot? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought you could maybe say her name. I've tried. I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure that I can say it's Dawn, right? Dawn is the first name. I got that part of it. Plitzkowait? What is it? How do you say it?
I think it's Plitzkowait, but I don't. That's how I would say it.
I was going to say Plitzkowait, yeah, but I don't know.
You throw like a CK in there somewhere.
Plitzuit.
You kind of gave it a klitschel.
There's a Z. You know what the problem is when you see all those consonants, you want to hit them all, right? You want to hit all those consonants.
Clicklia or something is what you're giving.
Clicklia. Well, congratulations. I mean, it'll be interesting because first new head coach for WVU women's basketball in 20 plus years. So it'll be a new team. It'll be a new life for WVU women's basketball. Last thing, guys, I want to land on is friend of the show, a good friend of ours, and sometimes guest on the show, Brent Solheim, selected as one of the top 100 all-time WVU basketball players, Johnson.
Yeah, pretty cool. The Blue Gold News put together a list of their top 100 all-time. They put Brent at 92, behind Jermaine Haley and everyone's favorite Carl Head, who I had to understand who that was. But that's pretty cool. I mean, listen, we've been rolling out the carpet with some marquee names over the years, so I think that's an honor. Congratulations to Brent.
I mean, he's always going to be number one in our hearts, Scoot.
Right?
That's right.
So congratulations to Brent. I hope he's listening, and I hope he knows that he's one of the top 100 basketball players.
You're doing all this to butter him up to get him back on the show, aren't you? It's a play.
I tell you, man. I mean, I know he's got a lot. Hey, listen, he's a good. He actually is. Like, all joking aside, he was a very good friend of Johnson's in college back in the day. Now you know how old Johnson is. And
he's a busy man, but we're constantly trying to.
He's a very busy man.
Constantly trying to lure him back on to the show, so we'll have him back on soon. Especially if all this conference realignment goes down and we have new basketball foes to talk about, we're definitely going to have to get him on.
Yeah, he's got a lot of. Listen, there's a lot of commuting going on in his life, a lot of driving. I think right now, so it's fine. We get it, Mr. Solheim. Like, you'll join us when you have time. Totally understand. Anyways, yeah, I mean, it'll be fun. But congratulations to him, top 100 WVU basketball players of all time. Well, listen up, guys. We're going to do another show in like 2 weeks, and then we'll take a couple weeks off, and we'll be back for football season, and then we'll be back at it, all the time. Like, we will hit our every week shows, breaking down the games, talking about the good and the bad, and all those things that we normally talk about. Don't forget, you can find us online. Look for us on Instagram and Twitter. Find us on our social medias at Got Your Eers On. And you can also find our website, gotyourearson.com, Johnson. It's sort of like the hub of everything about us.
It is the hub. We post every show there in blog form. We put the link to the latest show there as well. You can click on the Tune In link, and you can see our latest tweets, and you can click through to the merch store to check out the latest GYEO merch. So check it out.
Yeah, check it out, gotyourearson.com. So we'll be back soon, guys. Thanks for listening. Scooty, stay out of trouble.
Always will.
Don't do anything I mean, you got off the hook this week. No bluff the fluffs. Cloney, kind of sleeping at the
wheel.
Asleep at the keyboard.
Yeah, that's what he does.
I mean, I don't know what the man's doing. We didn't get a bluff the fluff.
Listen, he lives an active lifestyle. You need to cut him.
He does.
Scoot,
there's a lot of wiffle ball action with that kid. I mean, there's a lot
going
on.
He's giving you a reprieve. He didn't want you to lose again this week, so he's just letting you have one more episode where you get to forego that loss until next time.
Listen, things have not been the same on Bluff the Fluffs since we've had some questions about Alf.
I mean, Scoot's begging for me to go back to writing Bluff the Fluff, so we'll see what happens. But listen, once season kicks in, it'll be a weekly event. We'll get Bluff the Fluffs back. We'll got Can't Believe My Ears will be coming back. We'll be back to regular shows, but it's summertime, and we've got vacationing and sitting by the pool, right, Scoot?
That's right.
Get done.
I got a sunbathing.
Yeah, Scoot's got to fix. He's got to get that tan. That bikini line.
Take care of my tan
rough
lines.
On Scooty. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, anyways, guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another show, and check us out online. We'll see you guys before you know it. So, you've been listening to Got Your Ears On.